So this has been kind of a crazy week for AEW, hasn't it? I did go to Vegas and attend Double or Nothing live from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. I did not do a review here on YouTube because I did a review on the K-Fabulous Lucha Brothers Wrestling Show, my podcast. I'll leave a link to that in the description in case you are new to the show. Me and Brandon Draven talk about wrestling on there. And it's a fun show, very wacky. We don't take ourselves seriously. We joke around a lot. But it's a good, fun time, I think. So check it out if you're new. It is on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Look up the KLB, K-Fabulous Lucha Brothers, for our review of not only the show, but also my trip to Vegas. I want to talk about what else happened, though. So not only did CM Punk have to, he didn't relinquish the AEW title. He is going to go get surgery because he has an injury, and they're going to crown an interim champion at Forbidden Door. But that's not what I want to talk about here on this video, because there's not much I have to say about that. It's too bad he got hurt right when he won the title. It's the first time that a champion in AEW, who's an AEW world champion, has had to take time off for an injury while he was still champion. Kenny Omega toughed it out for a while before he lost to Hangman back in November. This is a much more serious injury because Punk, it's surgical. You know what I mean? So I want to talk about the MJF promo. MJF, and those of you who have not followed the story, there was a problem going on with MJF and Tony Khan. It's been going on for a while, where MJF was unhappy with his contract. Now, there's a lot of different versions of this story coming out, and I've talked to a lot of people on the inside, including one I know somebody who's relatively close to one of MJF's counsel. That's all I'm going to say. And he told me kind of some more information on this. And one of the things that he said was that this whole situation is not a work, but they're going to turn it into a work. MJF has been unhappy with money and things like that. And apparently that part got resolved. But there's another issue going on. So what happened was MJF no-showed his meet and greet on last Saturday. And after that, he showed up at the building late for the Wardlow match, pretty much got squashed and stretchered out. And there's all kinds of speculation and stories about what's really going on here. So what they decided to do was they decided to turn this into a storyline. So on Dynamite, MJF comes out and cuts this crazy, almost pipe bomb-ish promo. It was like the MJF version of the promo that Punk cut back in 2011 on Raw in WWE. And I saw a lot of people going nuts for this promo, including people saying that, it was like MJF's version of the pipe bomb, which I would agree it is like that. But there were others who were saying ridiculous things. There were some people who said that this promo was like his Austin 316 and his Hard Times. That's how you know they haven't been watching wrestling for a long time, because you cannot say that about this promo yet because it's only been days since he cut it. I don't think this is going to change the company or change his career at all. On the contrary, the more I've thought about it, the more I kind of think it's actually a negative. And let me explain what I mean by that. So what I mean by that is this. Yes, his delivery was amazing. Maxwell Jacob Friedman has some of the best talking delivery in the business today. Maybe the best. He's incredible behind the mic, right? And he definitely sold this angle. In the promo, he pretty much buries AEW owner Tony Khan, calls him a, quote, fucking mark, which actually was not bleeped on some of the international versions of the show. And he talks about how Tony Khan keeps signing former WWE wrestlers, and that actually got a pop from the audience. So here's why I had a problem with it. So while I'm intrigued, it's also something where he kind of buried the company, right? And he kind of healed the company. And I've asked different fans about this, and he's kind of turned the company heel, because the things he was complaining about Tony Khan putting too much emphasis on former WWE talent and signing too many people to big contract. That's been a legitimate criticism of AEW for the past year. Signing Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole and CM Punk were logical moves to grow the company, and it's helped out beneficially for them, along with Moxley and Jericho, but they've also signed other people. Now, I like pretty much all the guys he signed. There are some of them a little bit on the fence about, like, I'm not sure if Leo Rush was really necessary. He's not even there anymore. I love Keith Lee. They haven't done much with him, but he's an amazing performer. Tony Nese, not really, necessary. Miro they've done well with, but they do have a lot of former WWE NXT talent. And MJF was one of the guys who was there from day one. MJF, Jericho, the Young Bucks, Cody, Kenny, Kip Sabian, Sammy Guevara. These were early signees. So MJF was complaining about that, but he's complaining about legitimate issues that AEW fans have had. And what they have to be careful of is that when AEW first started, and even up until now, their story, even though they're owned by billionaires, is that they're the little engine that could. They're not as big as WWE. They haven't been around as long as WWE. They're not as profitable as WWE, talking about AEW. WWE's had like a 70-year head start on them, going all the way back to Capital Wrestling. But the thing is, people have chanted AEW, AEW. Like, AEW is like a company that the fans have gotten behind because they were so tired of WWE's BS. That's where the AEW fans kind of come from, lapsed WWE fans. But when you start having one of your own talents, who, by the way, just got stretchered out and power bombed on the previous pay-per-view 3 nights earlier, coming out with no neck brace. I thought we were going to see him in a neck brace, in a wheelchair, in a body cast, like something to sell the power bombs, like he was stretchered out. No, he's fine. He said he was a little bit sore, but on this very same show, we saw Wardlow wrestle JD Drake, and MJF got more over on this show than Wardlow did. It's almost like people have already forgotten about Wardlow now that the storyline's over. And that's bad for Wardlow, but MJF somehow is a bigger star, which is good for MJF, but what about Wardlow? Now, obviously, MJF has more talent than Wardlow, especially behind the mic. No argument there. But the issue is that when you have a talent pointing out actual, real criticisms about the company, people are going to start to look at that talent and they're going to babyface him. MJF is a much better heel than a face, but they're going to babyface him because much like with what CM Punk did back in 2011, it's going to turn into the rebel fighting against the corporation, right? Fighting against what is considered corporate, as opposed to having MJF just be a heel who's just annoying and screws over the fans. That's not what I took away from that segment. And he's also doing a lot of this worked shoot stuff, which it really came off bad in the sense of telling people that, like, when he starts talking about, like, is it because I don't do enough moves? Like, he's basically telling everybody wrestling's fake. And WCW did this so many times in 2000, and all it did was confuse fans and hurt the business. Listen, everybody knows that wrestling is predetermined. If you don't, unless you're like a little kid or just a moron, wrestling, although it is an athletic sport, it is predetermined. They have storylines, they have stuff that they write down, they have, bookers, writers, whatever, right? You don't have to remind people during the show of this. When I'm watching a wrestling show, I don't want to think that it's written. Even though I can commend or criticize the writing, I want to just enjoy the characters and the fights. That's what wrestling's all about. But when you have a guy come out there and talk about how, well, he wants me to be this way and I'm not this way, it's like it really did come off like, like WCW 2000, and all those promos do is hurt the company. They don't draw a dime. They do not draw a dime. And I think MJF in particular has tremendous box office potential. MJF, if he's not already a huge star, is going to become a bigger star if he stays healthy as the years go by, because he's that damn talented, right? But when you have him cut a promo where he essentially tells the truth about the company, fans are going to say, you know what, he's right. I'm going to cheer him. It's going to become CM Punk from 2011, which is not a bad thing as far as having MJF be a drawing card, but it is a bad thing if you want him to be a heel. Now maybe the idea is to heal the company, but if you heal the company, it could end up hurting the perception the fans have. It's all about perception. Fans could look at AEW and say, you know what? He's right. This is not the same company that I was into 3 years ago. And it certainly is not. AEW from 2019 is not the same one from 2022 at all. It's a totally different company, different talent, different booking, just very different. So the promo was absolute fire as far as his delivery goes. I mean, second to none. But what he was saying really comes off like the company is the one that's the villain here. And AEW from day one has been hope for a lot of wrestling fans to have an alternative. You don't want to sit there and make your alternative look bad. TNA did this for years, and that's why they could never beat WWE despite having Hulk Hogan, Sting, Ric Flair, all these major huge stars, Kurt Angle. They could not put a dent in WWE's market share. AEW has done extraordinarily well considering it's a new company for the last few years. No, they're not making a profit, but they have done well for a new company, way better than TNA did as far as drawing. Their pay-per-view numbers are up. Like, they're doing better, but it's still a situation where you have to be careful how you treat this angle, this storyline. It is a worked shoot, basically. It's a shoot that's becoming a work. And what is the end goal here? Is the end goal for MJF to become champion and then do a storyline where he leaves the company even though he's still really there? Is it to eventually make Tony Khan an on-screen character? That's something I don't want to see. I do not want to see Tony Khan as a TV character. He can't do it. He's a very awkward, like, promo. He doesn't have it. He's just not a guy who looks good on camera. Vince McMahon, Eric Bischoff, Bill Watts, Vern Gagne, these were all company owners and bookers who could be on TV because they had a presence about them. Tony Khan does not have that presence. He's a nice guy, but he's terrible on television. And every time he's on TV, he comes off like a little whiny kid. He's just not... And I like the guy. I'm not trashing him, but I'm saying, like, he doesn't have that presence to be like an on-screen evil authority figure like a Stephanie McMahon or... Vince McMahon, the greatest heel of all time, you could even say, for Vince McMahon. Tony doesn't have that. So is this going to lead to that? Is MJF going to start getting screwed over? If they start cutting his mic and stuff like that, like, the reason why the cutting the mic stuff worked for Punk is because the company was afraid of what he was going to say. So what you're telling me is that AEW is afraid of MJF telling the truth? That makes them the bad guy. You see where I'm coming from? Like, this could very easily blow up in their face. I am not a fan of these kinds of angles where they expose the business. I know some people out there are. I'm not. And even though maybe when I was 13 I found it interesting and intriguing, and there's nothing wrong with having reality-based television, but to me, it's like, geez, man, like... I don't know. They got to be real careful with this. And not to mention that in 2024, MJF might actually legitimately end up leaving. That is still a possibility. And to build this guy up as a big star and have him just leave like that is going to look bad on the company. Anyways, those are my thoughts. I liked the promo, but I also don't like the idea behind the promo, if that makes sense. Thanks for watching. What do you think? I'm sure most of you are going to say, oh, dude, I love the promo. But think about it from my perspective of where it could backfire. Because now we're going into stuff that you don't want them to make WCW 2000 mistakes. You do not want AEW to do that. They've already tried to compare themselves to AEW. Khan has straight up said, like, I'm not going to be like Bischoff. I'm not going to be like everybody else. Then don't. Then don't be like them and prove it by not having these worked shoots. Like, it's one thing to throw little jokes here and there and acknowledge real life stuff, but it's something else to actually bury the company while you do it, because other companies have done it and all it does is just make them the bad guy. And I know that Khan doesn't want to be the bad guy for his fans. He wants to be the likable guy, and so far he has been for the most part. I mean, there's quirks about him that I find weird, but at the same time, MJF is so talented, bro. Like, you gotta treat him right. Anyways, that's it. Let me know what you think. We'll talk soon.